Hi. So in this episode, it's introductory in nature still. And I'd like to start with my perspective on what mental health is, where I see myself in that broad spectrum. I'll talk about the spectrum as well. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some childhood struggles I had, which I think are related to why I'm stuck and getting unstuck is a challenge. And then I'm going to talk about a pretty traumatic experience, very personal in nature, but one that I think I need to share. I hope nobody has gone through something like I have, but it's indicative of a type of traumatic experience that you may have had as a listener, watcher, reader, and may help with understanding what I did to get past some of the pain, suffering, and how I dealt with the trauma eventually. So I'll start by talking about my childhood. I was really, really, really shy when I was young. I'm not talking about, typical bashfulness. I'm talking about true shyness. And I think shyness is either caused by anxiety or certainly can cause anxiety. I don't know what the cyclical nature of that is. What something for us to ponder. Uh, I could not talk to an adult. I couldn't look an adult in the eye. I certainly couldn't talk to a girl. And as I grew up and got into my later years, talk about high school years, where things are supposed to be very formative in terms of building a personality and experimenting socially and talking with people and growing. I really didn't have that opportunity because of the paralyzing nature of my shyness. Well, my other friends were starting to explore relationships with girls, expanding their social circles. I couldn't even contemplate doing that. Now, in fairness, I had a really loving and supportive family, and that helped me through a lot of this. It provided me an outlet to, still be able to share personal experiences and do things. But I just didn't benefit from uh, the social interactions that a lot of people had to enjoy. But I did still participate in extracurricular activities. I was a good student. I was a decent athlete, and those allowed me to have a small circle of friends, which I'm super thankful for. Now, after high school, I did have the opportunity, thanks to my parents, to go into college, and unfortunately, shyness persisted there for me as well. However, I found a new tool that I could use to get past that. That tool was alcohol. Now, first, before I go any further, I am not advocating for the use of alcohol for anything other than drinking it in a social scenario in moderation. However, what I found was that alcohol broke down those barriers, broke down those fears, broke down those inhibitions, allowed me to take risks in terms of outwardly reaching out to people and talking and engaging. And so, because of that, um, I call it being a tool. And I have to say that it had benefits for me. And again, I feel bad saying this because I am not advocating it. And I'm seriously lucky that I avoided significant health risks or, God forbid, death. And I know that that does happen. So please don't take this as a green light to embrace drinking. It's just what happened to me. What I found out that as I grew, that some of those lessons learned stuck with me even when I wasn't drinking alcohol. And so that allowed me to flourish a little bit more in terms of my social engagements. Now, I bring this up because I think, we talk about mental health in very binary terms, or labels. Humans love the false precision of just labels. Oh, ADD, bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety. You know, I don't think it's as singular as that. I think a lot of them are related. I've been diagnosed, and that's a funny term in mental health because it's not a blood test, right? But I've been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, some attention disorders, and unfortunately, I also am dealing with PTSD, which I'll get into in a moment. But let's jump into that right now. Let's get this done. It's been something I've been delaying doing because it's a hard thing for me to talk about. And so if I pause and come back, I'm taking a breath and kind of recentering. But it was 2019. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I remember that vividly because we had family out visiting. It was a beautiful fall day in Colorado. I'm talking about 60 degrees and sunny. And that morning, I took my dog out for a walk. We back to an open space. I took my dog out there. We were walking through the fields and in and out of some, low growth areas, and then headed down into an area where a river runs through it. That small stream, really, but a river that supports a lot of larger trees, cottonwood trees, and things of that nature. And it was when I walked into kind of a tight area of tree growth that uh, well, I walked into this tree growth and saw what looked like was a human person standing uh, with his back to me about 20 yards off. It was just really unsettling. I knew something was wrong. I couldn't tell what from that distance, but I knew deep in my heart that something was wrong with this scenario. And so I went kind of around the edge of these trees and into the front, and that's when I saw that it was a young man who had taken his own life. Um, and I'm not going to go into the details of it. It was very, very unsettling. I don't want to get that graphic with you. But it was a young man who it was just such a heavy, heavy thing to experience because I knew he had taken his own life and knew that that was what he determined was his only path out of this world. And I guess I had some combination of flight, fright, flight, fight, or freeze um, because I kind of did all three. It was just my brain was really struggling with reconciling with what was happening, and I knew he was no longer with us. There was no question about that. And it's just to this day. I'll get to kind of future state, but that day I ended up having to have police come and be a witness and describe. It was just a terribly traumatic event, and I feel like I was shaking from adrenaline the entire day. Well, in typical me fashion, I did not deal with that situation well at all. I did not get help. I turned to my tool once again because I couldn't fall asleep. It was the last thing I would see while I was lying in bed were those images. The first thing I would see when I would wake up would be that set of images, and all throughout the day I could be triggered, whether it was the way the light shone, or the look of a cottonwood tree, or uh, I don't. It would just I would trigger, and so again I turned to alcohol to dull those senses and to help me sleep. And of course, that was not a wise decision, and it perpetuated me staying in that path of not getting help. And it wasn't until about 15 months later that my oldest daughter mentioned that I should see her therapist because she practices something called EMDR, eye movement disassociation and reprocessing, EMDR. I'm not going to describe what that is in great detail because I won't do it justice. I suggest if you're interested in that form of therapy, it's designated or it's really designed to help with PTSD. Google it, do some research on it, talk to people about it. But in my particular case, I can say absolutely without a doubt that going through that process saved my life. And I can say that my therapist saved my life. I'm not going to get any more clearer than that. That's the absolute truth. Now, I will say that EMDR is not a methodology to make you have amnesia, to make you forget about how whatever scenario you had. But it does kind of, I liken it to this way. It's like now when I envision that in my brain, that scenario and that experience, I kind of see it through a tunnel, and it's kind of blurry around the edges. And it's just not as crisp and clear. That allows me to think about it and to process that a lot easier, frankly. So I mentioned that I was going to be covering a lot of areas, but I wanted to make sure you knew the root cause of what really set me into a negative spiral. And I'm still dealing with this. I likely will deal with this forever. Um, was PTSD. And I know that different people have different forms of trauma. And I'm not saying there's a one size fits all here. I want to be careful about that. But I want to share my experience because what I did after that, what I continue to do in terms of exploring ways to improve my mental health, might be of value to you. Some may work, some may not. And I'm not going to tell you, do what I do. I'm not going to prescribe a checklist here. I'm going to offer what my experiences were, save you some time, maybe, or point you in the right direction of where to research. And hopefully you'll be able to benefit from this as well. Take care, everybody.